Hello, this is Luke Mel. I'm an explorer up in Alaska, and I wanted to make a quick tutorial about Gaia GPS. This is an app for iPhone and Android. It's not as mature for Android, that we found super useful up here for navigating remote terrain. So if you used Gaia before, you might have an older version of the app that lacks this yellow border, and you probably want to stop using that. I think in 2016 they overhauled everything and built this new version, and it's awesome. It's a definite improvement. The sales pitch here is that you can download all of this imagery, satellite, topo, whatever, and have it with you out in remote areas where you don't have Wi-Fi or cellular. So this is very valuable. You can imagine how useful it would be to see this kind of imagery if you're trying to travel through this landscape. My intention with this tutorial is to kind of rip through all of the features within the app, touch everything briefly. So this will be a quick survey, and then you can dive in on your own for a deeper understanding of all these features. So let's just jump into it. I'm going to start with the base layer icon in the upper right. There's kind of three different containers here. There's the layers that I have visible now, and in my settings I can choose to vary the transparency of these layers. You can see it happening in the background there. Or remove a layer or add a layer just by clicking on the green arrow, or I think just clicking on the layer itself will pop it up into the list. Yeah, so now I can see slope angle shading. If I want to keep that in my visible layers, I can just hide it by making it transparent. I'll turn Google Earth back up. So that's this section. Below that, these are all layers that I basically have like quick access to. These are ones that I think I might be interested in. And I can add or remove these by going into this Edit menu, and then there's a bunch more layers here. Some of these you'll see you can only access with Premium, and that's maybe the best argument to go with Premium. Is if you want, say, Esri World View or that slope angle shading layer that I just showed, those are only available as Premium layers. These other ones, though, I can go into Satellite and say, you know, maybe this is one I want. I could just go up here and add it. Or if I have one in here that I don't want, I can go in and then remove it. And that'll then no longer be available in that sort of drawer for me to choose from. Okay, so that's layers. A couple other options here to allow me to see my waypoints, tracks, etc. And yeah, I like having this all visible. Here's that option where I can choose to allow transparency on different layers or not. Okay, I'm going to jump over to, well, search is pretty straightforward. We're not going to talk about it. You can search for something. This icon allows you to go to full screen mode. You know, one of the advantages of using the phone here instead of a standalone GPS is that you have this big screen, fast processor, nice graphics. So this can be really nice to dig in. And a little bit of a hidden feature here, if you do a long hold on that icon, it brings up display settings options. So I'll just turn all these on so you can see what they are, and exit out of this. I've turned on a compass, so that will show the angle that I'm pointing the phone at. And this sort of stats bar, I can click anywhere on this stats bar to customize what's available here. So if I'm more interested in my course, my coordinates, whatever, I can put that here in this space. And then just click on that space again to hide it. In practice, what I find is that, especially in the winter, when I'm trying to touch these buttons, I often hit these with my finger. So that's why I had that by default turned off. But sometimes I like having it turned on. I'm going to go ahead and reset to my preferred options there by doing that hold press and hiding those all again. Okay, this next icon is the Find Me, Locate Me, and this is going to jump me here to my house in Anchorage. Kind of a hidden function here is that a double press here will bring me into a line of sight mode, and this is super useful. This is one of the MVP features of Gaia. where say you've got two passes, you know, here and here, and you want to trying to figure out which one you were planning to go over, you can just turn the phone, sorry I bumped it there, turn the phone and get the sense for which pass is to the right, which pass is to the left, if that makes sense. I use this all the time. When I got out of this mode, you'll see that north has rotated, so that's no longer in that upper position. I just click on that compass and it pops me back to north. Okay, this next icon here is sort of the everything else. I can record a track, and you can't see what's happening here, the fact that it's recording, unless you go down to trip, and then it'll tell me information about how long it's been recording, and if I was moving it would have some stats here. I'm going to go ahead and cancel this out. Go back to the map here with this icon on the left, bottom left. Other functions here, I can add a waypoint. This option lets me add a waypoint wherever I want. I can click on that and move it, move the screen, zoom out, whatever I need to do. This is also how I would enter a waypoint. If somebody, say, sent me a location, I could come in here and type that in, lat long, save it, etc. I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of that. Another waypoint option here was to add a waypoint right at my location. In this case, it doesn't allow me to move it, it just pops it up. What do you want to call this thing? I'm going to cancel out of that. Okay, up next, I can create a route. And so it gives me a start point right in the center of my screen. I can just drag this to a new location if that's not where I want it to start. And you've also probably noticed initially it showed distance and bearing. I can click on that point again to reveal that distance and bearing. And I use this all the time too. This is super helpful for me. Say we are traveling through low visibility, maybe it's white out on a glacier, and we want to conserve battery life, so I'll drag this point to, you know, where I think we're going, and it'll tell me what the bearing is and how many miles away it is, and so I can put that bearing in my compass and then let the phone just sit in my pocket, stay warm, and not drain the battery too much. But again, that is a little bit of a hack. This is meant to be starting a route. I've got one point, and all I need to do is do like a long hold where I want that next waypoint to be, and I can then move that one around to next waypoint. So this is also how I would measure 2 points. I would kind of pretend like I'm creating a route, measure the distance between 2 points that way. So I do this a lot. You can see an elevation profile getting built on the bottom. I think it's pretty nice eye candy. It gives you some stats. There are 4 different modes here. This is bird mode, which is just straight line. But if you were near a road system or hiking trails, probably not so much in Alaska, but more likely in the lower 48, these routes could then snap to that trail or that road. For my purposes, the straight line is what I want. Okay, I'm going to cancel out of this. Up next is the ability to draw a polygon. I'll go somewhere that looks more interesting, the plus icon, and create an area. So this, I imagine, could be really useful for search and rescue groups. If you have an area of interest, you could create this polygon. I'm having trouble grabbing that center point. Gimme. Okay, there we go. So let's say this is an area of interest. You can define this polygon, and then you could have everybody on your team record their own search tracks as they went through here, and then come back together, put the search tracks on a single phone, and you can do that in the field just by airdropping. I'll show that a little later. And then you'd be able to identify which areas hadn't been searched within this polygon, this region of interest. I think that could be really powerful. Shows you the area of the polygon down here. I'm going to cancel out of this. Up next on our option here, download maps. Okay, this is a big one. The download maps, there's a few different ways to do it, and this is the way where you don't have any routes pre-drawn, but you just know it's an area that you're interested in. Gives you a bounding box that you can drag the corners of. You see the size of the tiles here, so this is a small area that I've drawn my polygon, and I'm looking at a pretty huge file size. And you can control that by changing the resolution here. So my resolution or they're calling it max zoom. It's going up to 1 to 1500. I can drop this down to level 16 and get this tile size down to something that's more manageable for my phone. And 16 is a good rule of thumb. That's a good value. I don't think I've ever actually downloaded anything up to 19. Okay, I'm going to cancel out of this. Just a few more options here under the plus. Download maps, take a picture. This one's pretty straightforward. I can take a photo, click, and then it will create a waypoint at that photo. So the photo will be geo-referenced at that location. And finally, I could import a file if you had a KML or a GPX on your phone or on a different device with Gaia. You could import it that way. Okay, that's everything for the plus. We talked about how to get to the map view, the trip view, discover view. This is like search and not a feature that I use. Saved, this is where everything lives, and the structure can be a little bit challenging. Once you hit saved, jump up here to tracks. It might not say tracks, it might say any of these. So it's kind of a subset of saved. This is a valuable one. Like, I'll go into the maps folder and make sure that what I think I've downloaded actually shows up here before going on the trip. Or if I back out, folders, this is a really useful one where, say that I want to share this folder with team members going on the trip. There's a few ways to do that. I can hit this plus person icon and make it public. I can share a link that'll create a link to the Gaia GPS sort of page for this folder. Or I can go in here and either type email addresses here or add them from my contacts list here. So a really powerful way to collaborate, and I can give people the option to edit or just to view the contents of this folder. Back out of this. Now alternatively, there's this 3 circle icon, and if you click on that, you have the option to export, and here you can export all of these points and routes as either a KML or a GPX. And when you do this, it doesn't matter which one you choose actually. You can either airdrop to a computer or text or email the contents of this folder. So this is also a really convenient way to transfer the routes that you've drawn. And again, you could do this tent to tent in the middle of nowhere using the airdrop feature. So other options, show on map, pretty straightforward, create subfolder, straightforward, add items. Okay, I'm going to back out of this. I'm going to back out of our saved folder by going to the map. And what's left here is, I'm going to show you one more thing in saved. I'm going to go to my routes. So out of folder and into routes. So these are the routes that I've drawn for a trip that I'm planning to take. And I'll just click on one of these randomly. And within this view, 3 dots gives me a new option to download the maps for this track. So I'll click on that. And this is a really nice interface that allows me to choose which of these layers I want to download maps, and also choose which resolution, low, medium, or high. So for this case, say maybe I don't care about that one, but I do want Google Earth, and I probably do want a topo map. So I could select those and then download. It shows me the size of those tiles that will be downloaded. So this is creating a bounding box around this route, so something like this, instead of me manually doing that. This is probably the most efficient way to get maps onto the phone. Okay, back to the map, and then now to settings, our last field here. Quite a bit of stuff here. I'll just point you to the ones that I think are most relevant. The last sync can be important. If you don't see a route that you anticipate seeing, you should come in here to last sync, and you can toggle it. You can see some membership information, etc. here, but that syncing toggle is useful for me. Units, this is an important one where, say, you did receive units or a location from somebody, but it came in as UTM or degrees, minutes, seconds, and you want to be able to type that location into your phone. You'd want to come in here first, change your units, and then go create that waypoint. Back out of that. These are pretty straightforward. Appearance, colors, etc. Map controls. This contains a bunch of the things we saw with that long hold on the expand button on the main page on the map view. Downloads, distance markers. This allows you to see a little blue dot every mile between points that you've drawn on a route, or every 2 kilometers. So I like that. It helps me sort of judge how far I have to go on that route. Compass, power saving. There are a few options here where if you were really trying to conserve battery life, you might want to turn off altitude lookup and just read the altitude off of the topo map. Things like that. Okay, I think that's it. I'm going to go back to map view and zoom out. I'm happy to field some questions on this. Hope you find it as useful as I have. It's been awesome. They've done a great job. I guess the last thing I'll mention is that this is a very actively developed app, and it is worth checking for updates before you go out on each trip. I'd say it's at least every month, and maybe a couple times a month, that they are making updates to the app. Okay, thanks. Bye.